In a quiet town left behind by the modern world, a young woman discovers a forgotten mystery. A genius inventor who discovered an ancient legend and set off on a journey to the edge of the world. She will need to use all of her cunning to follow him and uncover the truth about his disappearance for herself. Syberia is a point-and-click adventure game. In it, you play as Kate Walker, a representative who has been sent to the Eastern Europe-Sylvanian town of Valladolid to finalize the takeover of a local manufacturing plant for an American conglomerate. As the game begins, Kate arrives in town to learn that the current owner of the factory has died. Not only that, but she left instructions that the long-lost heir of the family's holdings has disappeared into the wilderness of Syberia. In order to complete her assignment, Kate will need to board a mechanical train and follow his footsteps into that vast, untamed land. Now, mechanically, Syberia operates very much as a traditional point-and-click adventure game. Each screen represents a location in the game world, and clicking on the screen allows you to move Kate around that environment. Clicking on the edge of the screen will move you to a new location, and you can click on puzzles or characters in order to interact with them, and objects of interest in order to pick them up and add them to your inventory. Like most adventure games, your goal is never quite straightforward, and making progress requires collecting items, solving puzzles, and completing tasks for local NPCs. Completing these puzzles and objectives will open up new areas and advance the story.
Hello, sir.
Miss Walker, I presume. Have you had a good journey?
Everything went very smoothly. Thank you.
So what's the good and bad of Syberia? Well, on one hand, the presentation is lovely. All of the characters are visually and narratively distinctive, and the voice acting does a great job of bringing them to life. The interface is also very simple and intuitive, making it easy to navigate or interact with your inventory. But the real standout of the game is the visual design. It has this eclectic mixture of steampunk and Baroque and Art Deco and modern design that I really dig. The backgrounds are well rendered and they look fantastic. They do a great job of establishing the tone of the game, of really making it seem as if this land of Syberia is a place out of time, somewhere where myths and legends might actually be real. Unfortunately, as strong as the visual ambiance is, the actual mechanical design of the game is not very good. The specific problem is that, one, the puzzles of the game, which I'll talk more about in a bit, are either incredibly simple or unnecessarily tedious. And two, the level design of the game, beautiful as it is to look at, is often overly complex and unnecessarily extensive. In Syberia, there are large chunks of the game, just dozens on dozens of screens, where it's just interconnecting streets and corridors, entire segments of the environment where there's nothing for you to do and nothing for you to interact with. And I understand why the developers would do this, to try and maintain verisimilitude, to make it seem like your character is moving through an actual physical space by having them walk through all these interconnected areas. And honestly, in most other games, you probably wouldn't even notice it, but in a point-and-click adventure game, it is very noticeable. Because the end result is a situation where you click on the edge of the screen and then sit and wait for your character to jog across so that they can get to the next screen, and then repeating this process who knows how many times until you finally reach your destination. Combine this with a huge number of dead ends and corridors that have no mechanical or narrative significance, and the result is an experience where exploration becomes exhausting. And maybe, just maybe, this could have been forgiven if once you finally got to where you were going, the puzzles that you were solving were really interesting and complex. Unfortunately, this is not the case. As I mentioned before, the vast majority of puzzles in this game are either very simple or very frustrating. Here's an example. The first puzzle of the game, on the first screen of the game, you arrive at the hotel and you need to ring the bell in order to get help from the manager. So you go up to the desk, you try to ring the bell doesn't work. You need a key in order to activate it. So where is the key? Oh, it's on the counter directly next to the bell. Puzzle solved. And it's the sort of thing that makes you wonder, if the solution was going to be so simple, why was my interaction even necessary? But hey, you know what? First puzzle of the game, maybe that was a fluke. Let's see how they do later on. Here's a better example. Later on in the game, I'm trying to activate this ladder mechanism so that I can break into a dead woman's house. Don't worry, it's fine. I'm an American. Anywho, I need to find a key in order to activate the ladder. And seeing as how there's one not sitting right next to it, I wander around the corner and stumble across a hedge maze. And at this point I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be more of a navigational puzzle where I'll have to map out the layout of the hedge maze or use logic and contextual clues to find a path through, and then at the end of the maze I'll probably find the key that I need. Except that no, as soon as I enter the hedges, I find out that the maze portion is blocked off and that the very next screen has the key that I need just sitting there in a basin, completely open, for no discernible reason. Puzzle solved again. But if that wasn't illustrative enough, allow me to jump ahead a little bit to one of the locations that you visit later in the game. This, my friends, is Barockstadt University, an archaic college at the edge of the tundra, filled with ancient exhibitions and occult knowledge. The train station alone is built inside of a greenhouse that doubles as an aviary. Conceptually, it's just fantastic. And on paper, it's a great location to make one of your main areas of exploration. Unfortunately, it's also one of the worst levels out of any adventure game I have ever played. And it's an almost perfect representation of the complaints I made earlier about the levels being way too big and the puzzles being way too dumb. Now, bear with me for a minute because I need to get this out of my system. At one point during your visit, there's a specific item that you need in order to make progress, and you learn from a book that that item is located there at the university. So you go and talk to the guys who are in charge, and you say, hey, can you help me? And they say, we don't have any idea what you're talking about. So you walk across the campus and talk to a different person and say, hey, I need this MacGuffin. And he tells you that he doesn't have any idea what you're talking about. So you walk all the way to the other side of the map to talk to a different guy and say, hey, I need a thing. And he tells you, I don't know what this thing is. Later, and just takes off. So you chase him down and talk to him again, at which point he tells you, okay, maybe I know what this thing is. Go talk to somebody else. So you walk back across the map in the other direction, talk to that one guy again. He says, okay, yeah, I knew what you were talking about the whole time. Go talk to the people who are in charge. So you go back to them, at which point they say, oh yeah, okay, we know what MacGuffin you're looking for, you can have it now. At which point you need to retrace your steps across the campus, out into the yard, through the train station, past the aviary, so that you can finally collect the item that you wanted in the first place. And heaven help you if you didn't use a walkthrough for this, because you might spend who knows how long just wandering in different directions without any clue of what order you need to talk to these NPCs in. And I mean, it is one thing for a game to have a tedious fetch quest where you need to go all the way across the map in order to collect the item you need. But it is another thing for a game to actively waste your time by having the NPCs lie to you and send you back and forth over and over for no reason. And what was the puzzle at the end of this, you might ask? What was the climax of this 15-minute expedition? Oh, you needed to get an egg so that you could put it on a scale because that was the lock that opens a door. Which is just the... yeah. And what's more, if the puzzles don't draw you in, chances are good that the narrative won't either. I'm not going to go too far into the details, but the ending of Syberia is a massive cliffhanger. Essentially, Kate spends almost the entire game traveling into the wilderness of Syberia, learning about these ancient legends of lost tribes of peoples and antediluvian creatures from before the dawn of man. All the while getting constant passive-aggressive phone calls from her overbearing boss and egotistical boyfriend back in America. And at the end of the game, she decides, you know what? I'm gonna go chase down those mysteries instead of going back to her old job and clearly miserable family and friends. And on one hand, okay, good for her. I'm glad that Kate found the spirit of adventure. But on the other hand, the game leaves all other major plot threads just hanging in the wind. In the end, I gotta give Syberia 1 out of 4 stars, and I would not recommend it. The visual design is about the only thing that separates this from its contemporaries, because almost everything else is an example of some of the worst precedents in adventure game design. The levels are too big, the puzzles are too small, and the story is clearly just chapter 1 in what should have been a longer tale. If you're looking for an adventure game that excels at atmosphere and visual design, maybe you'll enjoy this one. But if you're looking for anything more complex or substantial, you're probably going to be disappointed. Alright, well, thanks for listening. I'm off to wind up the train. Till next time.